I know more than you. You don't know about me. Let me tell you about me. It is baffling to me how easily I could lie to the people that I love to hide my addiction. In my late 20s, I had another episode. It was from another panic attack, pulling my hair out, not being able to breathe. I got a phone call at midnight from my best friend that lived next door to me. And she said, Katie, it's all gone. And I was like, what's all gone? And she's like, our home. I turned on the news and I saw that Hurricane Ida hit New York. That was the first time God saved me. So in my 30s is really when the drinking got bad. I was drinking in front of my therapist. In the treatment program, I would go and would have a bottle of water that was vodka. I mean, who is that person? That is not me. I was so angry and I was in so much pain that I was lashing out at people. It affected my career and I felt like I had lost everything because my career was my identity. I decided I was going to go into treatment. So I did that and I learned a lot of great skills. In my mind, it was like, oh, now my parents and brother will be proud of me. I lived there and I had the job and I was starting my life over. I was making friends and allowed people to love me until I could love myself.
Green lights and blue skies are on their way. Yeah, they're on their way.
Welcome to Crosstalk, coming to you from South Florida. My name is Irene, and this is a podcast where we share recovery stories in hopes to help someone who either watches this and has a loved one who needs help or needs help themselves. Please like, follow, subscribe, share it. We'd love your comments. If you need help and you don't know what to do, you can always reach out to us, comment, send a message, go to our website, whatever it is, we're here and we want to help. And thank you for subscribing. Okay, I'm here with Katie, who I love so much. Hey, Katie, welcome.
Good morning. I love you too. I love you so much too.
Yay, I'm so happy you're here.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. This is so tremendous, and just the work that you're doing to share people's stories, share your own stories is just remarkable. So thank you. And it's wonderful to watch your dream come true.
Yeah, thank you. And I know, you help people too. I mean, you raise money for Alzheimer's, and I'm not going to tell her story, but, you do so much too in the community, in our community, the recovery community, but as well as other communities that need the help. So I'm so excited you're here, and you're an angel, and I love you. And so, you've seen the podcast, so you know the drill. So let's start with how did it all begin? Where's Katie from? Tell us about yourself.
So Katie is from Bayside, Queens. I grew up right outside New York City in Bayside, in a wonderful home. I have two incredibly supportive and loving parents. I have a younger brother who is, my strength. He's my best friend. And I think my story, really, that is the line through everything, throughout the whole process is, how much love and support that I had, and how when things got bad. Right. And it really impacted that incredible support that I had from them. But I grew up, very happy childhood, very, upper middle class, normal, we played sports. My brother was a hockey player. I was a swimmer and a figure skater. And it was like my parents coached for us. They were involved in everything that we did. But there was always something about me where I felt I wasn't enough. And that really, I always had this thought that no matter what I did, no matter if I got straight A's, no matter if I never got my name on the board except for once. And my mom actually took me out for ice cream because she wanted me to know that it's okay. No one's perfect. So we're going to reward the fact that you got your name on the board.
Is having your name on the board a bad thing?
It was a terrible thing. That was naughty.
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
I definitely answered a question without raising my hand. So I got my name on the board, and it was as if I had committed the just worst cardinal sin,
Wow. I was real naughty then.
I went through my entire academic career without getting detention. So that just gives you a little insight as my brother said, like I was a goody two shoes, and
You totally are a goody two shoes.
yeah, and I am now again.
Yeah.
But I think that search for finding what was missing in me led me to alcohol when I was about 14, 15 years old. I made some friends and there were parties and that's actually when I started lying. Because I'll never forget the first time I went out with some friends and I got drunk and I came home and I was throwing up and my parents were like, "What's wrong? What happened?" And I was like, "Nothing. I was just drinking Diet Coke." And that lie came out of my mouth so easily and continued to do so for the next 30 some odd years before I got sober. It is baffling to me how easily I could lie to the people that I love to hide my addiction. So high school had, minimal incidents where I got in trouble, kind of drank too much,
Was it on the weekends mostly?
It was on the weekends mostly.
Okay.
Mostly.
So you weren't like coming home from school and
No, not yet.
Okay.
not yet.
Okay.
But we had the sit downs and, I knew that I was disappointing my parents and, their whole thing was, how can we help you? What do you need? And I think that it's a beautiful question, but I had no idea what I needed because I was also battling. I started having anxiety at a very young age where I used to pull my hair out starting in second grade. And that led to binge eating, which was also something I did in secret. I did to, hide because I was so desperate to be perfect. I didn't want anyone to know these things about me that were far from perfect.
I was doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I was hiding my binge eating.
Right.
And it's that eating disorder piece or disorder eating, however you want to call it, is so hard because we need food.
Right.
But using food as a coping mechanism, it's like, where's the line sometimes?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. And it's really hard. Thank God, for my therapist that, helps me every day through the eating stuff because it is real and it is constant and it is something that I need to recover from just like I recover from alcohol. So the anxiety and the depression and the eating really were this, as I actually wrote an essay called The Monster Inside Me when I was in high school. And it was really, I wish to this day that I could find it because it talked about what I was really going through and, just this pain. I hated the way I looked. I hated that, everybody else seemed to be doing something better than me.
Right.
I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't thin enough. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't good enough at sports. I was always in my mind, keeping, this was all in my mind. In everyone else's mind, I was, I was fantastic, right? Like I was so, like everything was great. And my parents were proud of me and, my family loved me. My brother was proud of me. My friends were proud of me, but I couldn't see it.
I totally can relate to that. And I always say, like, I always thought it came so easy to everyone else.
Yes.
And I was like, why isn't it easy for me? Like, why is everyone so thin and I'm not? Meanwhile, I'm binge eating. I think that everyone's eating cake every day and they're thin, but it's like, no, they're not,
They're not.
And it's just like this thinking that isn't real, right? And we just, where does it come from? I don't know. Because it's like great families, there's no real like significant trauma where, I'm sure there are traumas, but there's no significant, event that would say like, this is why I think this way.
Right.
So it feels very incongruent to life.
I think that for me, I choose not to speak publicly about my traumas because I think that it's just something that it took me a really long time to heal from. But there were traumas. And I think, school was definitely hard for me. I was bullied in school. And that just reinforced this feeling that I had about myself, right? And I remember vividly when I was about 15 years old, sitting in my best friend Liz's car, and she said to me, she goes, I don't understand. I just can't. How can I help you? I wish you could see me the way that I see you. You see yourself the way that I see you. And she just kept saying that to me over and over again. Like, if you could only see how other people view you, you wouldn't feel this way. And I would get angry with myself, just saying, like, why can't I see this? You know, it was like any excuse to really beat myself up, to hurt myself. And I think that the more that I look at my life, I used alcohol also as a form of self-harm, because I would drink to excess and to the point where I was ruining my life step by step. In college, of course, it got worse. You know, I was able to hide it more from my family because I was living at school, but they knew. Right. And my friends knew, and they were scared, and there were incidents where, you know, I got in trouble, and it was bad.
What did it look like? You know, were you waking up in the morning and drinking? You know, I know for me in college, I was like coming home in taxi cabs in New York City, and like they wanted to kick me out. Yeah. It was so bad. Like they were like, get out of my car. And I was like, just take me home, you know, just take me home.
Exactly. That is 100% what it looked like. You know, I wasn't drinking during the day unless there was like an excuse for day drinking, but I was like always the one that suggested it. Yeah, I mean, I was getting
Saturday pop champagne,
kicked out of stuff. I was the one where it's like, where's Katie? Oh, there she goes. And you know, it was really difficult. There were times where, you know, I would vomit all over myself, and, you know, it was not living. But at the time, that's what I used to cope. That's how I thought people liked me, right? Because I was the party girl. So it's like, now I have all these friends, and, you know, now I'm going to all these parties, and, you know, it's not that I never really had a lot of friends growing up, but it wasn't until, you know, the end of high school and beginning of college when I felt like I had made it. Like I was somewhat cool. Not even, if I can use that word, I'm aging myself, but
I use the word cool. I use the word cool all the time.
Yeah.
Is not a thing anymore?
Yeah. I don't know. I just use, I don't know. We'll look to the ones younger.
Yeah.
That, you know,
like,
tell us.
I heard some weird words recently, like something like sigma or something. I was like, what? That sounds weird to me. What are you talking about? It's a Greek letter, you know?
Yeah,
like,
right.
Yeah,
true.
I don't know about all that anyway.
But, you know, college was great. I mean, it was like the tale of two cities with me. It was like the best time of my life, the worst time of my life.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I started working all this time. I love how I glance over the fact that, like, I did take a leave from school because my mental health was so bad. I had a really bad panic attack, and I had to be placed in the hospital, 72-hour hold, you know.
Yeah. Well, panic attacks are serious. Like, they can feel like a heart attack.
And this one was bad. You know, there was a time where I had to leave school for a little bit and get some help. And then I started into therapy, started, you know, medication and things like that, which helped for a while. What I didn't understand was my drinking was really not having the best impact on the strides I was trying to make to better my mental health.
Right. And it probably didn't mix well with the medication.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
So then I started working right out of school. I landed a phenomenal job with a golf association that I just loved. I mean, it was so much fun for me. And my parents, avid golfers, my brother, avid golfer, very good golfer, has won a number of titles and things like that. So golf was always big in my family. And I felt that maybe I didn't realize it at the time, but subconsciously it was like, oh, now I can sit with them, right? Because like I was the one that didn't play golf. I was the one that was by the pool, and you know, I had made up all these things that like they love golf more than me. I mean, the things we tell ourselves, right? You know, when we're in this dark, alone place, and
it's like totally the substance that's talking.
Yes. Oh, definitely.
You know, like there's no like clarity, like how ridiculous to think. I mean, not to invalidate or
No.
anything like that, but like that your parents would love golf. I know how much your parents love you, by the way.
Exactly.
So, I mean, maybe that's why
Yes.
I feel like I can see that.
Yeah.
But, I had those ridiculous thoughts too, where I look
Yes.
back and I'm like, where did that messaging come from?
Where did that come from?
Such a great imagination.
Yes. So once I started to excel in this position and make a lot of friends, and in my mind it was like, oh, now my parents and brother will be proud of me. And so that was great. I was doing incredible things. I mean, I was traveling to France. I was traveling to Ireland. I was, planning these high profile golf events. I was meeting incredible people. And it was a great life. And I was drinking my way through it. And
this is in your 20s?
Yeah, my 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, my 20s. So, but again, it was like age appropriate, I guess, in some ways. So like I would always downplay it, but I was right on the edge all the time.
Well, I actually, did this golf event once where I was helping someone. A friend of mine had a golf caddy company, right? Oh. And so she was like, can you caddy? I was like, I know nothing about golf. I was like, but I can drive a golf cart.
There we go.
So I went and caddied, and it was a police chief of New Jersey, Newark, I think. I don't remember, but it was all the police. And there were stands of alcohol at each stop, I guess, or at each hole.
Yes.
They knew I knew nothing. They were like, you are the worst caddy in the world. But they gave me PBA cards after, and nice. I was really excited. But when I used them, the cop used that against me. So it wasn't a good thing. But anyway, they were drinking a lot. And they were telling me, this is that's what we do.
It was the culture.
So
especially during that time, I think things are changing now because I think society is changing. But it was always, everybody was always drinking. And so to have a drink in my hand was not something that was,
uncommon.
Exactly. It wasn't looked down upon. It's like, oh, okay, we're all having a drink. In my late 20s, I had another episode, and this one was worse than the last, as they tend to be, where I did have to take a leave of absence from work and go into back into the hospital, 72-hour hold. I was a danger to myself and others. And
was it from a panic attack?
It was from basically another panic attack, psychosis. Hearing
from
voices,
drinking,
I believe it was.
Yeah.
Pulling my hair out. I hear
that
out.
A lot.
Yeah. Pulling my hair out, not being able to breathe, attempting to do things to harm myself. Because at that point, despite everything that was going on in my life that was good, I could only focus on the pain and during that time I started, I was self-harming. So that was something that started. And again, I did it in places that people wouldn't see, because I had this mask. I had this image that was me. That was, Katie, or actually I went by Kate. I go by Kate at work because I have an H in my name.
Right.
Which always throws everybody off. So I go by Kate. And so it was almost like, there's this Friends episode where Joey, becomes Joseph, and all of a sudden he's married with 2 kids, and everyone's like, who's Joseph? Like, you're Joey. Right. So in my life, it was like, Kate is this, fantastic event planner, and she's got everything together, and, everything's great. And they're like, who's Kate? Like, where did this persona come from? But it was this person that I created,
right?
And I remember when I got into the treatment center that we both went to, my family therapist wrote Kate and a big X through it.
Right.
No Kate, no fake Kate.
Yeah,
because Kate was very fake.
Right.
Kate was very inauthentic.
Right. I mean,
very inauthentic.
It's so funny. They always hated nicknames there.
Yeah.
They were like, no more nickname.
Nothing. You go by, your name and who you are.
Yeah.
And so I took a break from that episode. And again, I got better, but I never stayed sober. It was like, at that point, no one was really talking about my drinking. It was more of like her depression, her anxiety, at that point, I had lap band surgery, so I had lost a ton of weight, and then I gained it back. I also gained back, this, I would, at risk of sounding gross, I would vomit. Like when I would eat too much, I would instantly vomit.
Yeah.
Right.
That's very common with that surgery.
Very common.
I had weight loss surgery as well, as some people know, but gastric bypass. God, over 24 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait, how old am I? Yeah. 20. Wow.
I know. I had mine in 2004.
I had mine in 2004 too.
Oh my gosh, I love this.
Oh my God. I mean, I knew you had it. I didn't know 2004. Yeah. As soon as I graduated college, the June I graduated, I had it. And I can't throw up, so I never was able to. So I get sick for like 45 minutes. Not anymore as much, but it can happen.
Right.
It can still happen, and it's really painful. But I remember the people around me have the same issue. And having that surgery I don't know if you know this, and I could be wrong, but there's like a lot of research now that shows like post-bariatric surgery.
Yes.
There's a lot of addiction, like it inflames almost. It's like this thing called addiction interaction, right?
Yes.
Where it's like you're switching food for something else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I always think of it as like a pool, right? And you've got like a leak in a pool. And if you patch up that one leak, it's going to sprout out another leak, right? Because the pressure's so great.
Right. You're not.
So it's going to pop out somewhere. And there's going to be a leak. So you got to be really sure that, you do a thorough investigation of your holes, right? And
well, it's what I've realized too, because I've been 300 pounds, then I dropped down to 100 something pounds where I was emaciated during my addiction. And then after getting sober, I gained 90 pounds and I was over 200 pounds again. And now I'm at a regular weight that I'm happy with. But what I've realized through all of that weight loss and weight gain is that it's a freaking inside job.
it is.
That I've been miserable thin, I've been miserable big,
Yes.
I've been happy big, I've been happy thin, and the weight, the outside has nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it.
But you don't get that
No.
when you're where you want, when you're not where you want to be on the outside.
Yeah.
That feels like that's the answer.
Right.
And it's like so far from the answer.
So far from the answer.
And it's so frustrating. I'm like, wait, what do you mean? All I wanted was to be thin, and then I get thin, and I'm like, I'm not happy.
What do you mean?
What do you
look
mean?
what I've done to get here.
Right.
Right.
And
Like, I
everyone's like,
worked so
you
hard.
look so good. You look so good. And you're like, I feel not good.
I feel not good. I feel not good. I feel terrible.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. It is crazy. And, and it was like throughout all of this, I have just that constant, that negative self-talk just kept getting louder and louder and louder. And I
can
kept
so relate to
drinking more. And it was like everything that was happening was like, oh, I'm going to drink because I'm happy. I'm going to drink because I'm sad. I'm going to drink. So in my 30s is really when the drinking got bad. I was really suffering with, I'd now become bulimic because the vomiting after meal, it was like the band introduced me to bulimia, right? And it was like, oh, wait, like I can do this, right? I can, I can purge after meals. And then that's another way that I can, again, almost as another form of self-harm, right? Because I was very violent, beating myself up for eating, binging, and then it got into restricting as well. So I was a mess. I was keeping it together, but barely. And then my cutting myself harm really amped up again, and people started noticing. And then I went and was forced to get help. by both my family and my boss at the time. And they said, this is bad. You need to get help.
Right.
And it was more for the mental health, not necessarily the drinking.
Well, I mean, the reason why we drink is
Right.
the mental health.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, what it always starts before a drink.
Right. And I don't think anybody, including and especially myself, was ready to say I'm an alcoholic. Like, I was just not ready to say that. Like, yes, I like drinking. Yes, I like a good time, but I'm not an alcoholic by any stretch. Like, that was my lie, right? Even though I'm pretty sure I knew at that point that there was something different about me, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe that's what caused all of that, maybe that's the common denominator in all of this, right? So I ended up getting some outpatient help, and it worked for a little while, but now my drinking had gotten to the point where I was drinking in front of my therapist, like in the treatment program. I would go and would have a bottle of water that was vodka.
And did the therapist
Gatorade.
know?
Not until the end. And I was so angry and bitter. And I probably am realizing this, that I owe this woman an amends now that I really think about it. I haven't thought about this literally since it happened. Was I drank in front of her, and she was basically kicking me out of the program. Like, she had said I had been drinking, and she was kicking me out of the program,
right, and
was forcing me to do a breathalyzer because she wasn't going to let me drive home. And she said something to me, and I said, "Oh yeah, you think you're such," because she used to talk about how she's been in drug and alcohol treatment for 30 years and all this stuff. And I threw it back in her face. And I said, "Oh yeah, you think you're such a good drug and alcohol therapist? I've been drinking in front of your face for the past 4 weeks and you haven't noticed." I mean, where did that come from?
Right.
Who is that person? Who says that?
That is not you.
That is not
Katie I know.
me.
And that's the alcohol.
I was so angry and I was so bitter and I was in so much pain that I was lashing out at people. And then, it affected my career. I parted ways with the job that I loved so much because it was time, and I felt like I had lost everything.
Yeah.
Because my career was my identity in a lot of ways.
I mean, I still feel that we do associate ourselves with our career. It's what we do every day.
And it was how I had friends, and it was what everything I did. It was such a huge part of my life. So then I had another incident where I ended up in the hospital, this time for alcohol, and it was not pretty. And so the next day, I decided I was going to go into treatment, and I found myself a treatment center in Connecticut, and it was beautiful and it was wonderful. And they diagnosed me and said, "Okay, we're going to put you in the eating disorder house." And I was like, "Okay." They were like, "But you're also going to, go to AA meetings and do the alcohol abuse portion of it as well." So it was like dual diagnosis.
Right. And you learned that it's really all the same
It's
thing.
all concurrent. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, so I did that, and I learned a lot of great skills, but I was doing damage to myself for so many years that it just scratched the surface for me.
Right.
It was very helpful. With it, I think I was 90 days sober before I started drinking again.
And was this treatment program, how long was it?
I was there for 7 weeks. I extended myself. So, I mean, like, it was great. It was great. I mean, and I loved, my therapist was so great. Like, I loved her. She was amazing. I got a lot of help. I started some trauma work there that, was good, but then
when you don't finish that work and yikes. It like brings everything back.
Yeah, and it sure did. And in no time, I was drinking every day, all day. I had started that before I ended up going to treatment. I was drinking every day, all day.
And this is in your late 30s.
My late 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I lived by myself. So I lived in this dungeon. It was a garden apartment, so it was dark. I lived in this dungeon of handles of Tito's. Like,
where is this? Where are you living?
I was living in Rye, New York at that time.
Oh, right.
Right.
So
I love Rye.
Yeah.
I loved it there. I really did. I
not
had
the apartment, though.
not the apartment. And so,
and it's so funny because we keep ourselves in these dark spaces. At least I did too.
Mm-hmm.
And if we weren't drinking so much, we'd be like in a nice apartment,
right.
saving money,
right.
probably spending our money on or spending our money, but on different things. And
right.
it's like instead everything is going into alcohol.
Everything was going into alcohol.
Or whatever your drug of choice is.
Now my relationships with my friends are strained. Now relationships with my family is strained. I was showing up drunk places. I was interacting with my godchildren and my nephews drunk.
Yeah.
You
want to pause for a sec?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I mean, this is part of the journey.
Help someone too. I mean,
like,
this is the point
that's why I see this, and and it breaks my heart to know that person was so selfish and so consumed by this disease that not even the most important people in my life made a difference. Like, it didn't matter to me. It just, what mattered to me was the alcohol.
Right. And I just want to be clear, because some people might look at this as like we're blaming alcohol, like we're like saying, well, it wasn't me, it was the alcohol. But no, I mean, we did a lot of work to get to where we are.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's not, and we know that was our actions.
Yes.
Right?
Oh, definitely. Right.
But that's not who we are.
Right.
And now, I always tell people, I'm like, you can choose to change and be a different person.
Yes.
If you choose to put down the drink.
Exactly.
And those things you did don't define you.
No.
Right? They're in the past. Like,
right.
that could be a memory.
Right.
And it is, right?
And it's like, as we say, like, we don't choose to shut the door on our past,
right?
Because
we got to remember that's what we did,
right,
so we never go back.
Exactly right. And I think that in the program that I am in, you take accountability for your actions, and you take a look at your life and the choices that you make. I know that it was me that made those choices.
Yeah, for sure.
That it was me, and you make amends to those that you need to, and there were many for me, because I hurt a lot of people.
Right.
And I know that I hurt the people that I love the most.
Right. It was you, and
you
were inebriated.
Right.
And you were,
right.
This is the reasoning. And, I can't even imagine that, Katie.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you hear that a lot.
I do.
Because I hear that. They're like, you were an addict? I can't even imagine.
Right.
You have it so together.
Right.
Like, well, there are days I don't have it together.
Good days, bad days. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's life.
That's life.
For everyone.
Exactly.
Sober, not sober.
Right.
You know? People are like, well, how are you? I know it's a struggle. I'm like, yeah, but it's a struggle all around.
All around. Everybody's struggling in their own way.
Yeah.
And I think that, the way that I keep my sobriety is to give it away. And so I think talking about these things and letting people know that me, the person that you see sitting here before you, that's, 2 3/4 of a year sober, right? Like, it takes a lot of work, but it's through, my higher power and my support system, my friends. I mean, I'm going to tell this story because, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but you were the first person I met.
I never forget
in recovery.
When we met you.
Yeah,
I met you. I was like, "Are you Katie?"
And I was like, "Who is this woman, and why does she have donuts?" And like, I think I love her. And you were starting the EAA meeting, and I was like, I just immediately, I had never met you before, but I felt at home, and I felt a certain peace. And I think that is something that's so magical about our community, and we've become, very close friends. You are in my personal board of directors, as I like to call it.
Yes, exactly. And you are in mine. And I'm so happy you're here, because I want you to continue with the story, and
because it gets good.
It gets good. But, you know, I love this and what we're doing here because it helps, you know. If it wasn't for these stories for me, and if it wasn't for hearing other people that, okay, I'm not the only one that blew up my world.
Yes.
Right. And
Yes.
I'm not the only one. And if they can get better, then maybe I can.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And
yes.
that's the truth.
That's it. That's it. Maybe someone hears this and is like, oh, wait a minute.
Right.
Like, oh, I did that too. Oh, okay. And she's okay, you know,
Yeah.
and
It doesn't define you.
It doesn't define me.
Yeah.
It doesn't define me.
Your worst moments don't define you. Actions don't, you know.
Right.
In the end of the day, you have to just move past it.
Move past it.
Do better.
Do better.
Yeah.
When you know better, you do better.
So tell me now, you're in your late 30s, you're, you know, kind of drunk around family, around little ones, not a good look. You're not happy about that.
Nope.
But you keep going.
I keep going, and I really didn't, you know, at this point I was in a dark place where I just kept thinking to myself, no one's ever going to love me. This is it. Like, what do I have to show for my life? And then my parents had always planned to move to Florida when they retired to play golf and enjoy their life.
Right.
So they had they sold our home in Queens, and I think the most telling reaction was, how are we gonna tell Katie?
Right.
Like, how are we gonna do this? Like, she's not gonna be okay. And I was okay, and until I wasn't. And then I was resentful, and I felt abandoned, and I just drank more and more and more and more.
Right. And you're still in Rye in this dungeon apartment.
Still in Rye, you know, but again, going back to that mask is when I would be with my family, you know, I did not let them know that I was, you know.
Had they ever seen your apartment?
Oh, they'd see my apartment. They didn't love it, you know.
Right.
I mean, I made it homey for me, but like they did not like it, knowing me and knowing my personality and knowing how I like to hide. They were like, this is not good.
Right.
But
there's nothing they can do at that point.
Right. Like, I was paying my own rent, and you know, I was doing all the things. So, and then I'll never forget, I have a conversation with my brother, who just like he has put up a lot with me.
Yeah.
And one of it was another one of my drunken phone calls where I called him crying, and, you know, and he said, well, why don't you move to Florida? And he was like, Katie, I see you moving to Florida in 2023. He was like, living in Florida, finding a church, being happy. And I got so mad at him, and I was screaming. I'm like, I can't believe you would say I'm not moving to Florida. Like, I was so angry. Right. So angry. Like, how
the worst
dare
place
you?
In the world.
Yeah. Like, how dare you?
Right.
So, you know, my parents were moving down, and I ended up flying down to help them with the house, and I loved the house, and I loved where they lived, and I was like, this is actually not so bad. But I was also like sneaking alcohol into the house when they, you know, weren't looking. I was buying White Claws from Target, you know, and just like, again, just like total alcoholic behavior, you know. Because they had, at that point, they knew better than to have alcohol around the house because I was going to steal it.
Right.
So I got a phone call at midnight of Labor Day weekend that from my best friend that lived next door to me, and she said, Katie, it's all gone. And I was like, what's all gone? And she's like, our home. And I was like, what? She's like, it's all gone. It's gone. The flood. It's gone. And I couldn't imagine what was going on. And then, you know, I turned on the news and I saw that Hurricane Ida hit New York. And Erin had told me the story, how she had to climb out from the, you know, the cabinets to make it out of the apartment, because again, it was a garden apartment, so it was low to the ground. Right. And so when the water started rising, she was
living with you.
We shared a wall. We were like two separate apartments, but she lived right next door. And so she had gotten out, and obviously I was in Florida. So
stuff is
my life that was the first time God saved me, right? Because I know in my heart that if I would have been there, I would have been inebriated, and I probably would have taken sleeping pills or something to try to sleep, and I probably wouldn't have been able to wake up.
Yeah.
So
You would have died.
I would have died. I would have drowned.
Yeah.
Because from what I hear, it was fast and furious. So the water level had gone up pretty much to the top of the apartment. So everything was gone. Pretty much nothing was salvageable. My furniture, my clothes, my bags, my shoes,
shoes.
my jewelry,
Right.
and there were these things that that are irreplaceable, just memories of my life that, I'll never find again. Things from my grandmother, took me a long time to heal from that.
Yeah, I remember that was a tough
That was a
one.
big one.
Yeah.
And so
And there was like nothing anyone could say.
It
We were
was
like, ooh.
yeah, that's rough. It was rough.
Yeah.
It was not good. So I flew back home, and, licensed to get shit-faced, basically.
Right.
So I was like,
Were you in a hotel? What'd you do?
I ended up staying with my best friend Sarah and her and my godchildren, her husband Eddie, who are the second part of saving my life, because I drank myself
Into
pretty much
oblivion.
to death. Yeah, to death,
as they say.
because of my eating disorder, because of my restricting, binging, drinking. My body had shut down. So Sarah took me to the hospital. And they basically told Sarah that they didn't think I was going to make it through the night. Yeah.
Wow. So was this the culminating event that brought you down to Florida?
Sure did.
Yeah.
I woke up, there was a woman on my bed, and I'm like, who are you? I'm like, hello.
Stranger.
So I'm like, okay,
Hey,
I
stranger.
made it. Hey, stranger. What is going on? I see Sarah on the phone, and unbeknownst to me, I find out later that Sarah, my brother, my sister-in-law, Gabby, my parents, it was like they all just rallied together to save my life.
Yeah.
And, my sister-in-law has so many resources and contacts in that field. So she just got on the phone and just found where we went.
Yeah. And you're like me, you went straight to Florida, right?
Yeah, I went straight to Florida.
You bypassed
the
Magic Mountain in
I
Pennsylvania.
did, yeah.
Okay.
I was going right to the place
where they send the worst ones.
Exactly.
They're like, you bypass, everything,
Right.
and you just go to
do not pass go.
Yeah, you're like dying.
Right, this is bad.
Yeah.
And I think they told my family that it was like, when nothing else works,
Yeah.
you go here,
Yeah.
right?
So
and I don't know
it's
if I can say, the name of the place.
Yeah,
where
we say
went.
Karen all the time.
Okay, so I went to
listen,
Karen.
I need to be getting paid, by the way, by Karen. Hello.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
We're available for sponsorship.
Yeah. So they get the most press from this podcast. Literally, I think that they've heard Karen many times.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's one of those places where, Renaissance, that program specifically is
Yes.
like the end of the road solution.
Yes.
For families, and it works.
It sure does. And I think the component that was most attractive to my family was the family work,
right.
And then having a family therapist.
So
Dr. John, I
yeah.
love him so much. I text him all the time. I sent him
Campo? No.
Netherman.
Oh, I don't know him.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh my
yes.
God.
No, I know him.
Yeah.
Of course I do. What am
Yeah.
I saying? He's still there.
Yeah, he's still there.
Yeah.
But I text him and,
I didn't know he was a doctor.
Yeah, Dr. John.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Shout out. Hi, Dr. John. But we call him Dr. John because my brother's name is John.
Okay.
So whenever we would talk about something, I would pref it by Dr. John said or John said. Or,
Right, right. So I want to get into now, you go to this treatment center, they save your life, you do tons of family work, tons of trauma work, tons of, working on all these little pieces that you've been. And what does this look like? What does early recovery look like? And what does recovery look like now,
I just want to say, for the record, I was inpatient for 5 months at Karen. And then I was outpatient for a while.
Why were you inpatient for 5 months?
Because I needed it.
Were you obstinate in the beginning like me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I was
Were
like,
you like, I know better than you?
yeah, well, and it was funny because they were like, Katie, like, you're not as smart as you think you are. And I was
me
like,
too.
what?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm the smartest person in the room. Oh my gosh. I was so arrogant. I was so, I've been down this road before. Like, I know more than you. Like, you don't know about me. Let me tell you about me.
Right. They haven't seen us a million times.
Exactly.
Like, we're
exactly.
like, okay.
So I always say when I graduated, right, when I graduated from Karen, life really began for me. And I started a new job, and I ended up, I lived at Karen instead of going to Halfway. I lived there, which was really great because that helped me with my fear of my trauma surrounding home.
I wish that was an option for me.
I can't believe that it was an option for me because I'm abundantly grateful for that. Mm-hmm. And then, so I lived there, and I had the job, and I was starting my life over. I was making friends, and a lot of my friends happened to be the people I went to treatment with, the sober supports, right, that came, that's how I met my closest friends.
And it was tail end of COVID?
It was tail end of COVID. So, yeah, so 2022.
That's such a monumental thing. We always, time everything now. Is that pre-COVID?
Right.
Post-COVID?
Crazy.
Yeah.
And it was just, it just started, and I started to, real life. So I was able to just rebuild my life with the foundation that I was taught by my therapists and by my sponsor. Mm-hmm.
Did they encourage you to do 12-step stuff?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And again, I was one of those people, my mom would say oh my gosh, I've never heard anyone badmouth AA the way you did, because I was I just had such a narrow-minded view of what it was.
Yeah. A lot of people don't.
I was oh no, I go in the rooms and I don't see anybody that looks like me.
Right. You're right.
I was in, maybe I was going to the wrong meetings. That's all.
There's tons of us, and we look like. there's no look.
We look like we look like anybody and everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I found a home group. I'm obsessed with my home group. I am it to me is.
That was my favorite meeting.
So good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And it just really, it brings me so close to women. I mostly go to all women's meetings, which, if you knew me in my past life, I was always around men. I was never around women. Mm-hmm. I had my few, my couple really close friends, and then the rest of it were the guys. It was Kate and the guys.
Yeah.
So
fake
Kate, leaning into women, was my saving grace, and being able to find my faith. I think that I did church alcoholically when I was in New York. I was on the board, I was in the choir, I was on the altar guild. I did everything on paper, what it was like to be the perfect Christian, right?
Right.
The mask.
And just to be clear, everyone finds their own type of faith.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's this misconception that 12-step meetings and AA specifically leads you to religion.
No.
And I just want to say that you happen to be very religious.
Yes.
I am not.
Right.
But my God is just as loving, and it's
Absolutely.
Spiritual. Mine's energy and all
your
the things
higher power is whatever you choose it to be.
Right.
And I love
you
that.
can say universe.
Yeah.
I say spirit. Sometimes I say universe. Sometimes
There's
and I
Gus.
just
Gus, great universal spirit or something like that.
Oh, I didn't know about Gus.
Gus is cool.
I don't like Gus though.
I know.
I don't like that word. I'm not going to use Gus.
Yeah.
I don't like that name.
Yeah.
Anyway, poor Gus.
Poor Gus. But it's one of those things that it's whatever you choose to have a higher power, it doesn't matter what it is. It's just that there is one.
I just like to put that out there, and because it's such a misconception.
It is.
And it drives people away. And this is such a helpful place.
Yeah,
and
it is.
It teaches you these tools that I know people who are non-alcoholics, successful multi-millionaires, quite frankly, could be billionaire. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
who have said to me, my daughter's an alcoholic, and I decided to do the steps and read the big book because I wanted to understand what she was going through. And they're like, and it's helped me in business.
Yes.
It helped me like level up. It helped me do this. And I'm like, I tell people, I say, that is so cool.
It's so cool.
And they're based on like old Stoic stuff
Absolutely.
and Christian stuff and just a whole bunch of things.
Right.
So anyway,
but the premise is this, the premise is the same, and it's funny because you read it and it's got some old timey language, and but it works, and it's proven, and it's free. So
and no expectations,
none. And I do believe that my higher power saved me, not once but twice, that time, and it was through the program that I saw that God was redirecting me, that God was not done with me yet. He's like, no, kid, you're not going out this way.
Yeah.
Come on. I got big plans for you. And that is just the most wonderful feeling in the world to know that I don't do this alone ever. And I did everything alone for my whole life, and I don't do anything alone now. I ask for help about everything.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's made me a better person. It's made me a better sister, better daughter, better godmother, better aunt, better professional. I mean, like, to be able to have uncomfortable conversations in business, right? Like, where it's like, I read somewhere that it says, the measure of success is based on how many uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have.
Oh, I have a million.
And I'm like, I have uncomfortable conversations all the time. And why? It's because that's what we do.
Sometimes my boss is like, you're so annoying, but I love you so much. And I'm like, well, the squeaky wheel gets the oil.
Yeah.
And I will continue to be annoying because that's what gets my clients what they need.
Yes.
And
right.
It's what works.
It's what works. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the only way I know how to
We got to ask for help. We got to say what we need. We've got to communication.
Exactly.
And it's been like a perspective change for me. It's like, and they talk about that in the big book. They talk about the psychic change.
Yes.
And I love that, the psychic change, because I needed that, and I got that.
I got that too.
Yeah.
I got that too. And my life right now is so full. It's abundantly full of beautiful things and people and places. And, I go to my home group. I go to some other meetings. I have a new sponsor, talked to my sponsor. I've got sponsees, I go to church. I do the do. But I do it in a different way now. It's just like this feeling inside of me of like, yeah, let's go. Like it's for a different reason. Like I think a lot of times I was like do because it was all selfish, right? It was like, how can this make me look like I look like X, Y, and Z?
Right.
Now it's like, I really don't care. Like I'm just doing these things to A, stay sober, B, help other alcoholics, and C, be a better person.
Yeah.
Right. And so, my, I have a very dear friend, George. We go to church almost every Sunday. That's been a part of my, part of my journey, because again, we have a pastor that's very open about addiction and mental health, and so that to me it aids my faith in my higher power. But that's just, again, that's my path.
Yeah.
I spend time with my family. I'm actually starting a new job in a week, so I know a little bit. I'm excited to say that I am joining the Hanley Foundation.
I've heard, and my coach actually went to Hanley, and he's a big advocate for Hanley, and I've heard such amazing things about that.
I'm so excited.
That place, that treatment center, and its foundation, just like Karen, and I love that. I'm so happy for you.
I'm really excited. Thank you. I always said
they've helped so many people. Like they are one of the top places to go for sure.
I felt that energy from the team there, and I always said that if there was ever kind of a dream job, if you will, that it would be getting to use my skills in event planning and marketing and PR and all the stuff, development, to raise money for people to be free.
Yeah, I love that.
To join us on this road.
Our guest yesterday, he it works also. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
his name and everything.
Wonderful.
But, and you should guys have to meet. You may know
Yeah.
him, but that's so cool. I'm so happy for you.
Thank
So, you know, what do you think is like the most important thing to put out there, to say like you're doing that you think works for others?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I do now that I didn't do is talk about it and talk to people.
Yeah.
And to be open, and to really say when I'm having a bad day, I actually say I'm having a bad day.
Yeah, or I'm struggling.
I'm struggling. And this year in particular has been a very difficult year for me for a number of reasons. And I feel that the only way I made it through was because I talked about it.
Yeah.
And because I shared with people openly at meetings and, in my life to say, like, I am struggling. This is hard.
Yeah,
Like, 'cause
same.
it is hard. Like,
This year
it
has
can
been
be
a hard year, and
Yes.
you're not the only person to say it. There's about 10 people this week that I've spoken to
Yes.
that are like, this was a really hard year. It was, and I'm talking about like 23
Yes.
into 24,
Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
Like,
It was
I always
very
think of a
hard.
year as like a school year
Oh.
rather than like a year
Same.
year.
Same.
Still, and
Forever
I'm like
a
20
student.
years out of school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard for me too. And I mean, there were days, I once said, I was crying on my porch and I was like, I feel like I'm in early sobriety. Like, because
Yeah.
I'm also getting to a point where I'm a woman and I have hormonal changes,
Sure.
right?
Same, girl.
And I'm just like,
Like,
is there
what
an
is this?
exorcist in this body?
Right.
What's happening?
What is going
Yeah,
on?
what is this?
Yeah.
This headache feels like an alien is like living in my brain.
Yes.
You know?
Yes to all of it.
It's so bizarre, but and that's why it's so cool.
Right.
Right? Because we just shared.
We
and
just
it's
shared
like,
that.
it cuts it in half.
Right.
And it makes it less powerful.
Yep.
And it makes it like, oh my God, not that I want you to also be in pain,
Right.
but
But-
it's like someone gets it.
Right. And guess what? When I am in pain, who am I going to call? You.
Yeah.
Because you know
you know-
what I'm dealing with.
Right.
How powerful is that?
Right.
How tremendous is that we have somebody somewhere that can hear what we have to say and say, you know what? Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I thought I was the only person that thought that. I was the only person that did that.
Totally. And that's what opened my mind in treatment, was hearing other people say like, wow, one of the things that I used to be like, nobody feels this way, was with my eating disorder. I used to feel guilty when I was hungry.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, who feels guilty when they're hungry? It's a bodily
Yes.
function, right? It's a bodily thing. And I felt that way my whole life. And someone said it, and I was like, me too.
Eureka.
Eureka. And
Right.
I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, someone understands
Yes.
and knows that it's the most ridiculous thought, but
Right.
it's real. I have it.
But it's real.
Yeah.
It's there.
It's there. That's so cool. I love that. Yes, I agree. Communication, talking to people,
Yeah.
and not being afraid about it.
No.
And that can be tough sometimes.
It's hard. It took me a
some-
long time to be so
It's
free with the
still-
way. I mean, if you would have told me, if there was like a magic 8 ball that said Katie's going to be living a sober life
Mhm.
in South Florida,
Mhm.
going to be the happiest she's ever been, and she's going to be on a podcast talking about
How great life is.
how great life is and how hard her life was, and like being very open and honest about that, I would have been like, what?
Or saying, I'm an alcoholic.
Right. I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah,
It's okay.
I know.
There are plenty.
I
There
know.
are plenty.
But also saying that and knowing like I'm an alcoholic in recovery.
Yes.
And it's funny because like I'll tell a non-alcoholic, like, oh, I'm an alcoholic. They're like, but you're not anymore. I'm like, that's not how it works.
Right.
And I do think wording is important. And I do think that what we tell ourselves is important.
Definitely.
And recently I figured out that something I say to myself, which is really bad, and I'm working on it, is like when I have a headache or when I'm not feeling good or when I don't have energy, when I come home and I want to like get into bed, I'm
Right.
like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And I constantly ask myself, what's wrong with me?
Right.
And it's like, there's nothing wrong with me.
No.
It's that I'm tired.
You're tired.
Yeah.
Your body needs rest.
My
Your mind needs rest.
Right.
Yeah.
we're like overstimulated constantly. I just want to shut down, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's
okay. And this question persists. This is like currently what I feel like every few months I'm working on something specifically,
absolutely.
right? And that's why I do therapy, and that's why I still continue to do work. But this current work that I'm doing right at this moment in time is the working on the how I talk to myself, because I worked on this before, but now how I talk to myself, like the what's wrong with me.
Right.
You know, you have a headache. Drink some water. You're dehydrated. There's nothing wrong with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're human.
Right.
And I laugh because it's the same thing. I do the exact same thing. Like I was sick this past weekend. You know, we had a big event last week, and I ended up getting bronchitis and like all these other things.
And normally I would say you're not allowed in my house, even with a sniffle. Like I'm one of those people.
But I've been on antibiotics and all
that's
that
why
stuff.
You're like, I've been on antibiotics for 2 days. I'm like, you're allowed.
But I was mad at myself for getting sick.
Right.
Like I'm like, how could you get sick? It's Memorial Day weekend. And I'm like, what? No, you're sick. And
your body
I was sleeping, and I was mad at myself. Oh, you slept again. I can't believe you're so lazy. It's like, no.
You're sick.
You're sick. So it's like talking back to that voice is what I'm finding is helpful for me to be like, zip it.
Right. Sometimes I talk back to that voice out loud, and I'm like, oh, okay, I look like a crazy person. You know,
it's only Beatrice and Bentley that know that we do that.
Right. But you know, sometimes it's important to talk back to that voice and to say like, hey, no, like there's nothing wrong with you. Hey, no, like my body's saying I need rest.
Yes.
I have bronchitis. Right. I'm majorly sick. I'm on antibiotics. My body needs to sleep.
Absolutely.
And I think that's so cool to have shifted our mindset to know and have the awareness to be like, that's not the right messaging.
That's not it. Yeah,
you know,
that's not going to work.
And would I talk to a 12-year-old girl that way?
Absolutely.
Would I tell an 11-year-old girl who's sick, don't rest?
Right.
That's ridiculous.
Would you tell me not to rest?
No.
Right? No, you wouldn't tell anybody. But that's the things we say to ourselves.
I literally was going to say to you, sleep, you know?
We're mean to ourselves.
Why?
I don't know. I'm getting better. We're getting better.
Every year I get better. And I'm at 8 years now, or it'll be 8 years. And there's still constant work, and there's still my new thing is like I'm riding a wave, right? Sometimes it's high tide and sometimes it's low tide, and I just gotta stay in that water and ride the wave. And like just go with the flow of the wave.
Yep.
Just it's gonna pass. And saying to myself when things are bad, when I'm having that bad day or sometimes bad week, and I say to myself like, this is temporary.
Yes.
This feeling is temporary, because sometimes I get sick or I don't feel good. I'm like, is this going to be the way I feel forever?
This is it. This is how I'm going out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, no, there's hope.
There is. And by the way, that is a tremendous way to like end the podcast, is that there is hope.
Yeah.
Because there is hope.
Oh my God.
Like that is the message that we want. Like there is hope.
I was sleeping in my car.
Like
there is hope.
There is hope.
Yeah.
There is always hope.
And what's so cool is like in this AA community, and I'm not, in a lot of the podcasts, I don't, I say 12-step program. I try not to promote one program, but that is the program that I am a part of.
Right.
And in this, I should say 12-step community.
Yes.
This is more than just that one. I have found that when I started from scratch again, zero scratch, and I know you did too. Yep. I was I had one of those remedial jobs where I was answering the phone and booking stuff for a massage company, like, and I was like, I should be doing, I was a real estate agent. I was doing this, I was doing that. I mean, not that I was actually an assistant to a real estate agent, but I was successful. I was making money.
Right.
I was the one that was like, paying the DJ's rent because I wanted to continue the party, or paying the Comcast bill, because I wanted the internet so I can like email my boss the listings or something. Right, yeah. And I was like, how am I doing this? I was making so much money, and now I'm like living on peanuts, looking at everything in the supermarket and saying like, what can I eat this week? What's on BOGO? What's this? And I've come a long way, but that's with help of the community.
Exactly.
Hey, this person has a job available. Yes. Hey, and I've watched people homeless people come into meetings and now be successful
Yes.
in construction and have,
Yes.
and so that is what's so incredible is that like, if you just make the little bit of effort
Yeah. The willingness.
and just, it's hard.
It's hard.
It's really hard.
So hard to
when
take
you're
that
in a
first step.
dark place
Yep.
to like let that door open a little
Yep.
so the light can peek through. But,
Yeah.
but I mean, just try it.
Just try it.
Just try it.
Just let.
If your way is not, how's that? It's kind of like that question that they would ask us
Yeah.
in treatment, and how's that working out for
Right.
you?
How's that working out for
And I
you?
was like, it's
Yeah.
not working out too good, actually.
And I think what for me was that I allowed people to love me until I could love myself.
I love that.
And so the women in the room circled around me. You were a huge part of that. Our group of friends,
Who I
huge
love
part of
so
that.
much.
The
We
best
need
friends
to
in
do
the
brunch,
world.
actually.
I know we do. And yeah, by the way, we do brunch. Like, we do brunch and have fun
Without alcohol.
without booze.
I do everything without alcohol. I went
Me
to the
too.
south of France and partied with friends who were drinking, who were doing other stuff. And I was like, okay, you do you.
You do you.
And I'm going to tap into that old me and get my party shoes on. And because now I go to bed at 9:30.
Yeah, of course. Me too.
But I tapped into that old me on vacation and I danced and I had fun and I was out with them and I didn't miss it.
No.
But it took me a few years to get there.
Yeah, it took a while.
It took me a while to get there. But it's worth the wait.
It's worth the wait. It sure is.
That whole like struggling in the beginning is what makes me not want to relapse.
Right.
Because there are thoughts.
That resilience.
And there is times where I'm like, that looks good.
Right.
Right. But I know that I worked so hard for this that I am not messing this up.
No way.
Mentally, physically, work-wise. Like,
Right.
I've worked hard.
Yes, you have.
And
Yes,
it's
you
funny,
have.
my coach turned around and he goes, and that's humility.
Right.
Having worked hard and saying like, I know I've worked hard.
Yes.
And, let me show you how to do it. Let me help you.
Let me help you. Lou, just take my hand.
Yeah.
I read something that a friend of mine just recently wrote today about someone that was lost by this, fell to this disease. And he said, I extend my hand and my heart to you whenever you're ready.
I love that.
And I'm like, there is nothing more powerful than knowing that there is a group of people that extend their hands and their hearts
Genuinely.
genuinely.
Right.
And the door is always open.
Mhm.
And that's something I think that I was looking for my whole life,
Yeah.
was to find people like this that I could be myself around,
Oh, yeah.
and that would allow me to thrive, because the love and support of my family and friends just has lifted me up.
Yeah.
And I'm so just grateful, and so grateful to you.
Oh my God, stop saying that.
So grateful. I am. I'm so grateful.
I love you. I'm grateful to you.
it's
It's
like-
a two-way street.
It's a beautiful
two-way
thing that
street.
we have, and I pinch myself every day when I wake up in South Florida. Excuse me, with my dog Bentley, Bougie Bentley, who can't do the whole podcast without talking about Bentley.
Yeah.
But he's in ACOA, so
Beatrice is a full alcoholic.
yeah.
She's a full food
food, yeah.
addict, alcoholic. So I love that. And is there anything you feel like you need to share that you have not? And then I have another question.
Oh, I think I pretty much put it all out there.
Okay. And thank you for doing that. Thank you
you're
for
welcome.
sharing your story.
Of course.
Thank you for being here. If you could ask your younger self, or not ask, I keep saying that, and I don't know where my mind is. If you could tell your younger self something, maybe you should be asking your younger self something.
Yeah.
But if you could tell your younger self something, how old would that self be? Like, what do you picture in your mind when you ask that question? And what would you ask?
I would be 8 years old.
Or what would you say? God, ask again.
I would say, you're going to be okay. Just let it go.
Right.
Just let it go. even at that age, I was holding on to everything. And I think that that's when it started, that I was holding on to everybody's everything, including my own. You know, it was just, I put the weight of the world on my shoulders, and I didn't need to.
Right. Not your responsibility.
Not my responsibility. So I think just saying, let it go. It's going to be okay. You can do this.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
You're incredible. Thank you.
You're incredible.
Thank you.
Mutual Admiration Society.
I know. Absolutely. I love women, lifting women. I love interviewing women. I also love interviewing men, of course. But there's this camaraderie, I think, in this community. And I have this very successful woman who's going to be on the podcast in the fall. She's going to come down to South Florida to do it. And she told me, she's like, you know, I love Corey. Corey's a good friend of hers.
Yeah.
But she said, I want to do it with you because I want to show other women that women should be lifting women rather than tearing each other down. I want another woman to be successful. Good. Let's do it.
There's room for all of us.
Way more than enough room.
There is, and you know what? It is, I absolutely love, there is one of my favorite humans on this planet, is a girl that I work with, and she has become so much more than that to me. She's, you know, I call her my mini-me. She's brilliant and funny and, you know, capable and talented and all the things. And I want to lift her up at every juncture. And she's like, you're like my hype woman. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Every woman needs another woman to be their hype woman.
We should always be a woman's hype woman.
Yes.
I agree.
And I want to be able to teach her that, you know, like there's enough room for all of us. We can all help each other and be successful and do it together. And let's go. Yeah. Let's do some good.
Yeah,
in this
let's
world.
go. I love it. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you.
You're the best. Let's hug.
Yes, let's hug it out.